happy to be here. So some days it seems like it was yesterday that I was a student myself, and I studied business administration in Saarbrücken and in Lyon. Other days it does seem like an eternity. So I started working at SAP right out of university in 1999, which for some of you may seem a lifetime because we're that age. But I've had a very interesting career at SAP. I started in St. Ingbert, which is close to Saarbrücken, through a referral actually of a friend who was working at SAP. I started there in the retail space, focusing on business development and marketing. I then went and worked in the US, in New York, for 2 years, where I was responsible for marketing SAP's retail product. I felt marketing was a little bit repetitive for me at that point and wanted to move more into a strategy role. And I had the opportunity to move to Paris, which was a wish of mine, but the new chief at the time, new chief strategy officer, was opening up his office in Paris. And so I relocated to Paris, where I spent 12 years working in the strategy team across a number of very different areas. So you can imagine that a little bit like the BCG or McKinsey internally at SAP. So I did product strategy and marketing strategy, go-to-market strategy, etc. I then moved to Berlin in 2014 and worked in the small and mid-sized business space, where I was responsible for strategic partnerships and also strategy. And since 2017, I've had the best job so far at SAP, and I think it's one of the best jobs, where I'm responsible for working with employees who have very innovative ideas, as well as external startups that we want to make to SAP's partners. And what I want to share with you today is how exciting actually that part of SAP is, a little bit about what we do, and also how we help employees in general become intrapreneurs, entrepreneurs. So what that means is founders of companies, because we have an opportunity at SAP. If you have an innovative idea that could be a big opportunity for SAP in the future, you get tools and a process, especially, and tools and mentors at your disposal to be able to work on that. You get funding just like you would outside of SAP to become a founder, a startup founder. It's just, we call them ventures within SAP, and you get actually time to develop those ideas to big products. And we have a number of successful examples of that within SAP. But I'm conscious that I only have 20 minutes to present to you, and then 10 minutes for questions. So the mission of my team, that is actually a global team. So we're in 10 locations around the world, and I'll show you in a minute those different locations. But our mission is really to help innovators. So anybody who is driving innovation or has innovative ideas, to start a business and to scale their business, to grow their business with SAP. So this team within SAP was created 4 years ago. And to date, and our mission is really to, on the outside, work with new companies, very early stage companies, to build partnerships with them, and internally to build products with them, and to help foster this innovation by giving both the external startups as well as the internal ventures or employee ventures the things that they need to really grow their businesses. That can look very different. So on the outside with the startups, their main interest, so these are companies that have an idea, that have a product already that meets a specific customer need, one of our customer needs. And then what they want from us is often data out of an SAP system, because they will provide, for example, specific analyses about what the companies are doing, or they will support customers in recruiting, when you look at HR recruiting. But what they need is, they need data out of an SAP HR system. And so we work with them to build integrations, API integrations with SAP's products. That's the one side. But what they're most interested in, the external startups, is the access to our customers. And part of what my team does is work with these external startups and see how can we introduce them to SAP's customers. And so if you think about it, SAP has over 450,000 customers worldwide. So that is a huge customer pool that startups, of course, want to access. Because if you're a startup, that means you have only a small number of employees, but you need to grow. And you've often got venture capital companies that have made investments in you and that they're expecting a return on their investment. So they want you to grow as quickly as possible. And that's one of the things that we do is we help them grow by providing them with the access to our customers. On the internal side, we start even earlier. So we start at the point where Catherine or I or anybody that you've seen today talking could have an idea to say, what we're hearing or we're seeing our customers need is a new supply chain feature, for example. And then I would look at who could work with this on me, who has the right competencies. And then my team supports these employees in developing that idea with mentors, with different assets to really growing that idea to a point where we make an investment decision. And the investment decision could be if Catherine and I now have this idea in supply chain, for example, if we make a good case and we have first customer validation, we would get investment from SAP. And that could be anything from 1 million to 2 million with certain KPIs that we have to meet. And every time we meet the KPIs, we would get additional investment. So we can start hiring and we can really create our own little business within SAP. As you can see, we've worked with a lot of customers because that's what's interesting both for the external startups, but also internally. And we've gotten a lot of recognition. So we were awarded by Capital for being one of the best digilabs or digital labs in Germany, but also from Glassdoor as being one of the few really startup-friendly corporates, or also the International Chamber of Commerce has awarded us with the way we work with external startups. A big focus for us also, and you see that on the right side of the slide, is the focus on what we call underrepresented founders. So this is a diversity focus that we have. Underrepresented founders can be female founders, because to date still only 16% of companies that are founded by teams that have a woman in them. So we're working on increasing that by focusing our efforts on scouting and looking for companies that have that. We also have the same goal internally when we're looking at employees that have ideas. An underrepresented entrepreneur could also, though, be ethnic underrepresentation. So anytime it's the percentage in population versus the percentage that gets funding is what we try to further, because we recognize that diversity leads to more innovation. So this is a bit how we have set this up. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we have internal ventures that get funding, and then we have the external side, which we're calling SAP.io Foundries, for example. So if you go on LinkedIn, you can look for SAP.io and you can see the large number of different things that we offer. A big part of what we do is business development, where we have business developers whose sole focus is connecting the startups with the customers. We have other areas like the Foundries, where we run acceleration programs, 2 per year, where we bring the startups together. There we have more generalists working with the startups. And then we have on the internal side, really colleagues who have an entrepreneurial mindset. Some of them have already founded companies outside of SAP, and their job is really to help the internal ventures scale their businesses. So as I said, we have 2 programs that do this. The first is the intrapreneurship side, where we put a lot of effort into finding those employees who want to launch new ventures and who really want to build the future enterprise software of SAP. The way you can imagine this a little bit is you have an idea, or Catherine and I have the idea, for example. But this is a program, it's a campaign, it's a global campaign that motivates us to think about certain problem areas, that brings us together with other employees so that we can actually form small teams to then deep dive further with design thinking methods, for example, with coaches and mentors on this. At this point, in the intrapreneurship side, this is all on top of what our daily job would be. So we have a daily job, but we have this idea that we want to work on. So we do that until we get to a certain point and get funding. The moment we get funding, then we can stop our day jobs and focus completely on this new venture. So just take you through the funnel here a little bit. We run a campaign. The teams need to submit their ideas. We screen those, we validate those, and then around 20% of the teams that have submitted go into what we call fast track, where they get a lot of additional tools put at their disposal, such as mentors, such as advisors. But we also have a library of presentations, workshops that they can attend to really develop their ideas. So we're still doing this in the evenings or on the weekends or in addition to our job. So you really have to have motivated also employees who do this. Of the original 100%, about 5% get selected then roughly in September, October, where we then move them into a focused 3-week accelerator program. So they can focus their time 100% for those 3 weeks on developing that idea. And then once they have finished that acceleration program where they really have done first customer validation, they have mock-ups of what the software could look like, they move into what we call, they go into an investment committee meeting. So that's about 2% of the total number of teams that have submitted. And we make an investment decision based on investment memos and specifically their pitch. And that's the point when they then go into the venture studio for about 2 to 3 years, depending on, some actually stop earlier because they realize that the idea is maybe not as big as they originally thought, or the customer demand is not as big as they thought. But at that point, they can stop their day job and really focus on this and grow businesses. And if you want to Google some of these ideas, you could find SAP Spotlight or SAP Brilliant Hire or SAP Room, RUUM. Those are examples of ideas that started with employees sitting together, coming up with a solution to a problem that they're seeing that our customers have, and all the way through funding, all the way through the whole venture studio to then become part of SAP's product portfolio. Just looking at the time, we still have a little bit. And so in this way, we are able to really engage with over 10,000 employees. So that's about 1/10 of SAP's employee base every year. Looking strongly there also towards female founders by motivating our female colleagues to submit ideas, to form teams. To date, this has been running now for 4 years. We've actually had over 5,000 ideas generated, which is a considerable amount of innovation, if you think of it like that, within SAP. And we have a big network of mentors from across the different areas within SAP that support these early ventures. If we look at the outside world, we work closely here with VCs to help us identify those customers, identify those startups to work with us, and we work closely with customers. And you can see here we actually have 2 unicorns in our portfolio of over 330 startups. Big ID is one, and Air Wallex is another one. So this shows also that we're, which is a big responsibility that we have, is finding the right companies to become partners and really SAP's next generation of partners. So as I mentioned, we help them with going to market with our customers, so connecting them to the right customers with technical support. And then there also we have mentors that help them. There's additional value. We give them credits. We offer them office space. There's many additional values. Here you can see where the team is based. So I think in comparison to many other corporates in Germany specifically, I think was one of the things that I love about working for SAP, and there's many things I can tell you, but one of the things is that it is a very international company with a lot of opportunity to move also internationally. So we have currently got 10 locations around the world that are always in a specific startup hub. So it's not a surprise, for example, that we're working out of Berlin and Munich in Germany rather than Waldorf, as an example, because we see a lot of the startup activities in Berlin as well as in Munich. And that's why we need to be close to where the startups are, where the VCs are. And so there's a lot of differences also between the maturity of startups in Shanghai, for example, compared to Tel Aviv, and also the focus areas, or New York. But a lot of these are the areas where a lot of VC activity is happening and where we see very many innovative startups. One of the things we also do with the startups is once we've helped them, we need to often move on to the next group of startups, because the volume, we have a lot of customers, like I mentioned, and they have very different needs. So we want to be able to offer them a broad range. And so SAP has a marketplace, which you can compare to if you have an iPhone like iTunes, with many different apps on it. And this is called the SAP Store in our case. And what we do is we help those startups get onto the SAP Store so that our customers then go onto the SAP Store and say, I'm looking for something to detect and prevent wire transfer fraud. And then they find, for example, TrustPair, and can start working and going into business with TrustPair. So one of the evolutions of what we do is we put them on this marketplace so that they are then available to all of our customers. The other area that this is very interesting from a personal side to work on is not only do you get to work with very passionate employees or entrepreneurs, but you also get to work with many different areas within SAP. So you've seen presentations this morning, for example, on the area of sustainability. It's very important not only to develop SAP's sustainability products, but also to have an ecosystem, to have partner solutions that complement what we do at SAP. So any of the partners or the startups we work with are filling a white space that SAP is not in. And so you'll see here we have in New York currently a program running in the area of sustainability, and we're looking then at retail and consumer products. So that's an industry focus. In Munich, the topic is of new mobility. And so it really enables also the team in Munich to work on many different. So Munich, as an example, worked on sustainability in the spring, and now they're working on mobility. So from an employee perspective, they're able to dive into a completely new area, a completely new part of SAP, build their own network within SAP, but also then have really interesting customer conversations in the space, and also find a lot of innovation that's happening, as you can imagine, in the mobility space or in the circular economy space. For this is also really interesting for our customers, and the conversations we have with customers are, I always think, the best ones, because we're not trying to sell them any software. What we're trying to do is just understand what is their innovation need, what is their digital transformation agenda, and how can we provide them with startup solutions that cover areas that SAP can't cover, but that they need. And so because these are really innovative solutions, the customers get really excited about what they're doing. And so for us, the task is just to understand, if you're a Bumblebee, for example, that's a customer that sells tuna fish, among other things. Tony is the CIO there. We sit with Tony and say, okay, what are you looking at? What are the areas where you have pain points? And then we go back to our portfolio of nearly 350 startups and, compile a list of solutions that could be of interest to Tony Costa. And as I said, we have a big commitment to underrepresented. My team itself, is about 40 people, small or strong, wherever you want to see it. 2/3 of those are actually women. In management, we have 50-50, which is something that is very important to SAP that you might have heard today as well. But we do this within the team, and we also look in the work with the startups and the founders that we work with, that we see the same kind of representation there. So that brings me to the end of the 20 minutes, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you, Alexa. There was one question that reached us before already the session. It is about, do you need any capital if you would like to start a startup within SAP as an employee? And how can you align also with external partners if you want to found a company, for instance, with external people?
So you don't need any of your own money. So the biggest difference between starting a venture within SAP and doing this outside of SAP is that the risk is lower and the rewards are lower, right? What that means is you don't need any of your own capital, and you will still, as an SAP employee, receive your paycheck at the end of every month. But you don't own the intellectual property of the solution. It belongs to SAP, which means that if you are very successful with that solution, you will also participate in that success, but not to the extent as you would if you are an entrepreneur outside of SAP that has basically risked everything and set everything onto that startup. There, obviously, the rewards are going to be much higher, but the risk is also higher. But you don't need your own money.
Okay, and then another question reaches us from in the Q&A. Can also students participate, like for instance, in an internship in one of the startups? Would that be a possibility to gain experience?
Yes, if it is possible. These are normally longer term ventures, so 2 to 3 year ventures. But if we're looking for interns in some of those ventures, then they would be still posted on our working students intern pages. The same way, we actually have a number of working students working with us, both on the intrapreneurship side, which is more the campaign running and identifying those innovative minds within SAP, as well as on the foundry side, where we're working externally. We have a number of intern and working student positions continuously coming back online. I know there's 2 coming from Munich and Berlin shortly, for example, where we sometimes have a marketing role or a business development role, an operations role. It's very different, but there is definitely an opportunity to work with us as a student and gain first experience.
Thank you. So at the moment, I don't see any further questions.
Okay.
Is there something on your minds that you would like to share or ask? Then jump now.
Otherwise, you can also, I included the LinkedIn QR code. So if at the bottom you see the QR code is my LinkedIn, so you can feel free to reach out, or otherwise also just look for sap.io as a website, or also on LinkedIn. We have an extensive presence, I think also Instagram and Facebook, where you can just see what kinds of activities we do there. The fun part of SAP.io is also that we're a little bit like a startup within SAP. So we have our own branding, and we still align, of course, with the SAP processes, but we have a little bit more freedom to position ourselves, because we're targeting not the same audience that typically SAP would be targeting, but we're really looking at addressing innovative founders. And so we have some leeway there a little bit to be creative and a bit different.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Alexa, for this great, inspiring presentation. And I encourage you really, reach out to her. She really would like to get in touch with you, also with the next generation of entrepreneurs. And now we will launch a poll for the feedback for this session. We encourage you to fill it in. Thanks a lot for attending. and I wish you a very nice day.